Hi, David.
Yo,
How's it going?
good man, good. I was gonna spend the entire day prepping for my forum tomorrow, and now I'm gonna take the dog to the vet, go get blood drawn. Just things that they're not inducing any stress at all. So it's
Just,
good.
just life, just
So
life
life,
getting in the
baby,
way.
life. Record a podcast because we'll be gone for next week. So all good things, all good things.
Our mutual friend Stephen Bump texted me, and he was trying to get me some information and didn't get it to me when he was gonna get it to me, and he was like, "Sorry, man, life got lifey." I was
Life
like,
got lifey.
"Life
Yeah,
got lifey." I
that's good,
was like, I,
man.
I like that. Life got lifey.
Well, it's funny because last Friday was the BCG, the Business for the Common Good conference, which is
Yeah,
awesome. Last year, so we bought tickets. So we're kind of donating to BCG, I think, because last year we bought two tickets, and I woke up the morning of and was like, it was probably the worst sickness I've been, the most sick I've been in like probably 2 decades. And so I didn't go, obviously. And then this year, Lifey got Lifey for you, so we donated another ticket to to
and I didn't go.
BCG. So you didn't
I
go,
was
but
super bummed, man. And I know you were bummed last year because it's such a fantastic conference. There's so many just amazing humans doing amazing work, and just a great place to learn and grow and get educated and just surround yourself with a bunch of awesome people.
yeah, I
But
mean
yeah, I was
and
bummed.
it's super cool in that the premise of it is Christian business owners in the Denver area getting together. When I say Denver, there were people that came from the Springs, there were people that came from up north, in
Yeah,
Colorado,
Colorado.
that get together, and really, it's the intent is how do we steward our businesses? How do we make max impact? And the overarching theme this year was wisdom. And so they broke it down, and there was an author that came, and I haven't read his book yet, but his name is I think it's Uli or Yuli Chi, and he wrote a book called The Wise Leader, and so I'm really looking forward to reading that. But he talked about the wise leader, which was a really interesting breakout just between these three types of leadership, specifically the servant leader, the human leader, and the community leader, and just the way he broke those out was pretty cool. And then it went into the wise business, and there were three speakers. One talked about purpose, one talked about scaling, one talked about investing, and how you do those things wisely. And then there was at the end was Hoff, who was on our podcast previously, from the Denver Institute for Work and Faith. Denver Institute for Works and Faith, yeah.
Faith and
DIWF,
Work. Denver
Faith and
Institute
Work,
for Faith and Work.
DF,
Yep.
DIFW, Faith and Work. But he talked about the wise city, and then Mark Sharrow, the CEO of C12, did a really cool speech about also about the wise city and like how you what a wise city looks like and how you as a business owner, because I think, in the lanes that we love to run in, the entrepreneurial lanes and, business, and you and I both love the marketplace, dude, there's a huge opportunity for impact through the marketplace, right? And oftentimes, just from pure numbers of people you touch, whether you employ them or you are, their clients or customers, you're providing a service, whatever that looks like, the number of people that you touch through business is significant. And collectively, I mean, the numbers don't even churches don't even come close to the numbers when you talk about the collective numbers of people. I mean, every day people are touching businesses. And so if you're using those businesses as an opportunity to be an expression of your faith and use them in a different way, the impact is almost immeasurable. The potential impact is almost immeasurable. I say immeasurable. There's actually a lot of stats out there, and they're pretty robust, and I don't have any at my fingertips. But I mean, just the millions of people, the millions of interactions, and how much opportunity you have to also influence. It was really cool. And so the overarching theme of wisdom and how do you do it wisely? Like how are you intentional around these things, right? Like how are you intentional with your business? How are you intentional with your clients? How are you intentionally impacting your city? And it was yeah, it was really cool, man. And ultimately you want a couple things. I'll just give you a couple highlights that for me were like, huh. One was, the overarching theme of wisdom, obviously, but they open with the question, why are you even here? And you and I were just talking about this and talking about it yesterday. And it goes the idea of who you surrounding yourself with and what does that look like, right? Like what does it truly look like? Not just like your buddies, your friends, whatever, and the things you do, but also like, are you invested in coaching? Do you invest in conferences like this to go put yourself around people that are doing stuff and things that you're like, oh yeah, I want to be around those people? Are you in masterminds? Like, what are you actually doing? What do you? And I guess frame it differently. They didn't necessarily frame it this way, but I will. What are you sacrificing to be better? Right? Because you can see paying for a coach or paying for an event as a there's a sacrifice of something, time, treasure, whatever that looks like. But like, what is it when you assess it? What is it honestly worth to you to grow and be better? And I don't know that I had necessarily thought of it in those terms outside of, before you and I started talking about this yesterday. I just reflected on it. But like, actually, what am I willing to spend to be better? And and I think for a lot of us, that number is zero.
To totally, man. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring this up. I've started to do some real estate coaching recently, primarily for military veterans, that have transitioned, and even specifically more than that, kind of a niche group of pilots that are like, flying for the airlines now and just have some time on their hands to start learning about real estate investing. And I've been talking to different individuals, and there was one individual that kind of responded back to me as I was trying to like talk to him about it, and he was like, I never pay to play, never do it, never pay to play, and that was kind of his phraseology. And that was like really interesting to me. And I kind of think back.
Did you ask him how's that going? How's that working out for you?
Yeah, how's
Not
that
not
working out for
not
you?
not like not in a flippant way, but in a genuine curiosity, like, hey, how's that working out for you? I'd love to know.
Yeah. I,
It,
I
it
didn't. I didn't. Because I'm not like, a big jerk like you are. But I'm just
yeah,
joking.
no,
I'm
no,
just
it,
joking.
it is jerky, but actually it's not jerky. Like it genuinely it's a genuine place of interest, curiosity to be like, man, that's awesome. Like just I'm just curious, how is it working out? Like is
Yeah.
it and and oftentimes and it's not to be jerky because I could care less. And you probably like, whatever, dude, on to the next one.
Yeah.
There are people that you want in your cohort, but I do think it's a fascinating conversation. And I want people to challenge me that way. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be a better dad. Oh, cool. What's your plan? Well, I don't really have one. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. How's that working out? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, anyways,
Well, yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. Right. And, I think
well, it's
you,
scarcity too, right? I don't pay to play. Oh, interesting.
right.
What if you paid, whatever, the vastly underpriced price that you're charging your
That I'm
clients
charging. Yeah.
for your course. But what if that yields? I just think about like our real estate journey. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm actually about to sell a house in Wisconsin, and I'm about to sell it probably for the same amount I bought it for like 6, 7 years ago. But
Yeah.
I invested in Milwaukee knowing that it's not really an appreciation market. And so my immediate thought, I was like, oh man, like but then I thought of, dude, I've owned this place for like 7 years and I've never paid the mortgage.
Right.
Right. And so there's equity in it now, forced equity, not by me. It's forced equity of somebody paying the note down. But my point is,
Well,
if someone didn't educate me on that process, I would think about it differently. And also I think about the investment and how much it's paid over 6, 7 years. And I'm like, oh dude, it's a no-brainer, right? It's
well, how
just,
much have you grown from that? How much have you learned from that, to
yeah.
do maybe to make a better purchase, down the road?
Well, and that house was one of the houses that got us, you and I, into real estate, and the experience was so bad. The people I bought it from were so terrible. That's actually what drove you and I to start our business. From
Start
my
a business.
perspective, was one of the big leading factors. So I'm kind of lucky to, even if I sell it for what I paid for it, I'm like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God, because that process was so bad that I learned a ton from it. But even that bad process, through the education that you and I have gotten, taking action, doing whatever, I also reflect on it and I'm like, oh, but actually that wasn't. There's not a lot of equity. I mean, there's equity in it now, and I'm not making a ton on the back end like you would in Colorado, but that was never the intent. There was a strategy behind it. So, anyways,
Right. Yeah. And to kind of your original point of just making an investment and surrounding yourself with people, I think it's critical. I think it's critical to your growth. And again, like for the longest, there was a long period of time where I was in that same mindset of, no, I'm not going to pay to play. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay money to be around people. I can get, I can read books. I can watch YouTube videos. I can listen to podcasts. I can do all these free things. And it just, I'll just be up straight up. Like it doesn't work. Like you have to invest your dollars to put yourself to a next level of growth, because there are others that are in that room that you need to be around, that are going to make you better, that have ideas, that have experience, that have been doing it for a lot longer than you have, that you will never have access to until you pay to play.
well, and here's what I find fascinating. As you were talking about, I was thinking through a couple ideas. One, I think you can do it to a very low level. Like I
And it will
think you
take a
can,
lot longer.
yeah, and I think you can grow and watch the YouTubes and do all those things. And I think you can get to a certain place. It'll take longer and it'll be less than what you probably could have, because there's also a power in like just the idea of, as you start exposing yourself to human beings and being coached, and if they take an interest in you, then like there's connections, there's things that YouTube can't, make a connection between you and another human being. And usually the connections are really where it's at, right? Like that's like where it's,
Oh yeah.
the opportunities that show
It's all
up.
about the
But
relationships and the people.
what's actually more stupid? And this just hit me as you were talking. I'm like, dude, the best in the world at everything have coaches. Like anything. Think of athletics. Go Google how much LeBron James spends every year
And
on
different coaches.
all the coaches, on all the diets, on all the thing, like on all the stuff. Just Google that, and it's significant, right? But all the best at everything in the world. Most business people that are super high level have one or multiple coaches. And so, like, what's
Yep.
actually more stupid? Like to not to pay to play, to have the mindset of being like, oh, I don't do that. Well, yeah, but the best do. So like, are you cool or are you just dumb? Because at the end of the day, and we were talking to a dude, we were talking to Russ, one of our homies in TKM, and he was mentioning the coach that he hired, and I know kind of the specifics on it, and I was like, dude, I need to get back in the coaching game. Like I need to get back in the
To be
being
coached.
coached
Yep.
game, because I know it's been a while since I've had, a coach or whatever, and I know there's areas that, like, I'm excited about what that coach will unlock. Whoever it is, I don't know who it is. I don't know what it looks like, but what I do know is when I commit to it, there's something is going to come from that. That's going to take me to a next level in whatever area it is that I choose to do that. And so in my, I'm ready to go on this coaching thing. And again, it goes back to to your point, who are you surrounding yourself? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your treasure? And there is a we joke. I mean, I talk about it all the time in C12, dude. A forum, an 8-hour forum for a CEO to go do that. That's a lot a month to
Yeah.
pull that
That's a
time
that's a
away.
big commitment.
It's a big commitment, right? And they pay whatever, up to $1,500 a month for this thing. What's crazy to me, and when I see it, I've seen it. I'm in month 3 of running my own forum, and I see it every single month. and I will see it in a perpetuity just talking to people who've been doing this for 15 years. The amount and the level of advice given to the CEOs in this group is literally has been worth like very tangible dollars. I mean, one guy recently was just talking about a $50,000 a month swing, a month
Wow.
swing in some advice that someone's like, you should, have you considered this? And he was like, dude, I've never considered that. And he implemented this thing, whatever it was, and it literally was a $50,000 a month swing. Do you think that guy even thinks about the 1,500 bucks he pays
Nope.
for like he doesn't it doesn't even make sense. It's not even a drop. And so, it's interesting. I think if you're not investing in these things, and you don't have to go all out like $10,000 a month coach, like there's levels that you can pursue. There's groups. I mean, shoot, you come to TKM and it's free, but you're going to be in a room full of dudes that are like, they're doing stuff, right? They're big
That's right.
deals. I mean, there's millions of dollars cycling through TKM just through connections, relationships, challenging each other and opportunity. And so, yeah, that's a great point. And for me, it was really it just boiled down to, man, I want to be surrounded by people who are in the marketplace that love Jesus and iron sharpens iron. Like that was the purpose of my going to the thing. And here's something that just a big takeaway. It seems so obvious, it seems so whatever, but it was the idea of spiritual formation in the context of work and identity. And one of the things they said is work is a place to live my identity, right? Like work is a place to live it, not a place to find it. And I was like, ooh,
That's
man,
good.
that hit, right? Because how many of us not only define ourselves, but what's the first question we us dudes is we're sniffing each other's butts, at the park. Like
What do
what
you do?
hey, what do you do? What do you do? But like how much cooler would it
You
be
s-
if it was
you
like
sniff dudes' butts at the
I mean
park?
it's a
That's
it's
weird.
a metaphor for
It's
um
weird. Weird, dude.
but yeah. Yeah. So we're walking in circles sniffing butts. The but the idea of asking a better question, like, hey man, like what's most important to you? Like what gets you like what I mean, if you just like desire to go a little bit deeper. And most dudes, when you ask that question, are probably gonna be like, one, they're gonna be like, that's kind of weird. Because normally only thing anybody asks me is what I do.
What do I do?
And second, it's kind of weird because the only thing I'm prepared to answer is what do I do? Right? Because that's how I identify myself. Well, I'm a naval officer, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, or and you dive into that. Oh, are you officer? Are you enlisted? Like what? Yeah, I mean, I'm in the military, and then there's a whole line of questions after that, right?
Yeah.
That we're very accustomed to. Or I do real estate. Oh, real estate. Oh, tell me, I'm a real estate investor. Oh, cool. Are you multifamily? You syndicate? I mean, you know what I mean? And there's so much identity in that, and there's really no depth because that stuff could change. If you're anything like you or me, I mean, we could change our real estate strategy overnight. And so
Done it.
done it. We were just talking about this yesterday.
We were.
Just focusing on committing to something and deeply pouring into it. But the idea of work, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, work is a place to live my identity. So ideally, if my identity is founded in Christ, is based in Christ, work is just another opportunity for me to live out my identity as a Jesus loving dude, right? Who does
Yeah.
work.
Well, remember we went and had coffee with Jack Kim. He's a big time real estate investor here in Colorado. He owns very large office buildings.
Yeah, I saw
Just
him. I saw him at
you
this
saw him.
this one's too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so when we were having coffee with him, like just an amazing dude, and he was serving us coffee, and we were talking about being disciples, and he had mentioned his a conversation that he had had with one of his taxi drivers when he was going to flew in to go see one of his properties in another city, and he was thinking through that, and like he's a big time real estate investor. He goes to these conferences, and he has a lot of influence on Christian business owners, but he's like, you know what? This taxi driver has way more opportunity than I do to be a disciple, right? And to tell people about the gospel. Because he's like having conversations with way more people on a daily basis, on a regular basis than he is. And like pour into that, right? Like that's what God called us to do in Matthew, like, hey, be a disciple, right? And you think about your business and how you can make an impact in the world. Another story I heard was an HVAC employee. How many people is he able to talk to on a regular basis when he's going into homes, you know, fixing heaters and air conditioners to talk about Jesus? As a CEO of a business, how many people can you impact? Your employees, the people you're working with, your clients. Like it's such an amazing place to be a disciple and to put that identity in that, right? In the marketplace. I think it's fantastic, man. And I'm sure there was tons of ideas that were thrown out at the conference that I missed out on.
Yeah, no, you definitely missed out. And this is not a place to this is not a place for comfort to help you feel like you didn't miss out because
Right.
you definitely missed out.
I know.
It's no, and I think there's there's a couple other things that just to highlight from this that really I'm looking for this quote. Okay, it was a John Dixon quote. And so there were uh Uli Chi, and I apologize if I'm misstating his name, but he, in the book The Wise Leader, one of the things he talked about was human leadership that I thought was fascinating. And it was more the idea, I won't go too deeply into it, but he offered that it's oftentimes for us Christians, it's usually a lot easier for us to believe or to trust in the deity of Jesus and not so much the humanity of Jesus. And what
Mm,
he was saying was, the level of humility it takes for God of the universe to come down in human form and have all the limitations. And he was highlighting the limitations of humanity, like even things like, hey, we have to like drink water and eat and sleep. Like there are things we have to do because we're so limited in our limited capacity as humans. There's things that we have to do. He was one saying, "Hey, you need to acknowledge those things and like do them, like sleep." He said sleep was a spiritual discipline, especially in a room full of entrepreneurs and business owners, right? And he's like, dude, you need to sleep, and this is biblical, and but he also talked about the humility and this quote he gave. It's from Humilitas, I think, is a lost key to life, love, and leadership, written by John Dixon. He said, humility is the noble choice to forego your status, deploy your resources, or use your influence for the good of others before yourself. And he just kind of dove into what humility meant, what it looks like, and how it plays into wisdom as a leader. And you can. There's so many places you could go with that, right? Humility, vulnerability, the five dysfunctions of a team, all the Patrick Lencioni stuff. Like, there's so many places you could go with that. But and so I encourage people to go down those rabbit holes. But it was the idea of taking that heart into your leadership, and then also you build that on top of, okay, what's my identity, and these things start stacking. You start finding opportunities to make big differences, and a couple other things that were said that I just really liked, and dive in at your desire, but it was one was uh, Mike Sharrow. He gave this line and he said, let's, as Christians, let's build less bunkers and more embassies. And I was like, ooh, that's good. Like I like the idea of, because some of us are so much, we get siloed, we protect our Christian, our church, our faith, or we make these groups and they're kind of closed. And this goes directly to Justin Whitmore Early's book, Made for People as well, where he talks about
mm,
we have a tendency to close out other people. And it's really a heartbreaking thing. And Mike was highlighting. He's like, "Hey, let's make more embassies. Let's be forward. Let's plant places and other places where, that are more. Our presence is known, as felt, is it's not these bunkers. So I love that. And the one other thing I just want to dive a little bit into was this guy from Eventide. I think it's Eventide Investing. Eventide. I don't know the full, but Eventide is the name of the investment firm, I guess. And dude, the room was like you could hear a pin drop when
mm.
this guy was giving his chat, because effectively what he said, or what the topic, he's like, hey, as wise businesses, when we invest, we have to be so intentional around what we are investing in. And he asked a question, where should Christians invest our money, invest our funds? And I say Christians, you don't even have to be Christian to understand this. Or not to understand it, but to that this is convicting. But where should we invest our funds? And he talked about the Bible specifically saying that the poor are uplifted when the righteous thrive, and the opposite when the wicked thrive. And the context for that was, he said, "Do you even know what you're invested in?" Right? He said, "If you have a 529 plan, have you ever looked at what that plan invests in, like where you're getting your dividends from, where your kid's college is going to be funded, what is going to be funded through, on whose success is it going to be funded, right? If you're invested in the S&P 500, or if you have, EFTs, or whatever it is, what your mutual funds, whatever your investment strategy is in the market, do you know where your money is going? Do you know what it supports?" And so he started breaking it down, and he's like, "Okay, so like 529 plans, were you aware that the number one company, the top companies that they're invested in are tobacco companies?" And you're like, "Ooh, I
Retro.
didn't. Uh-oh." And how do you feel about that? Do you and here's some stats. He was just saying this. Here's some stats in the third world, in a lot of underdeveloped countries, or developing countries, I should say. Um, Do you know the rates of youth smoking, and the unhealth and the death and all that kind of stuff, and how the tobacco companies specifically market to and prey on? Like here in America, we've made significant strides against the tobacco thing, but you think, are you aware of what it looks like globally, dude? Like I'm telling you, man, the room was like it's completely silent.
Hmm.
And he said, "How about porn? How do you feel about porn?" It's like your investments, you're making dividends on through support, and you don't now you no longer have the right to claim ignorance. Like the data's out there. You can go look at what you're invested in. You don't have the right to say I didn't know
Right.
anymore. And so he said, how about porn, the porn industry? Like, are you a supporter of that? Are you a supporter of the just the desolation that's created globally? And for the individuals involved, like, is that something that you want to invest in? Because you are invested in it. If you're, and he's
Mm.
just showing, right? He's showing data. And so um it was a really interesting thing. And he said, when I invest, I am rooting for the companies I invest in. Do I create or extract value? So just think about that. If you don't know what you're invested in, and come to find out it's tobacco and porn, say, like, that's what you're rooting for. You're rooting for their success.
Right.
It was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah. That makes me think, kind of back to one of my conversations with this coaching group, the real estate coaching group. And one of the guys was like, it's like, dude, I don't even know where to start. He's like, there's so many options out there, right? There's, the just the rental properties and the Airbnbs and the vacations and the multifamily and the apartments and the storage units and all these things. He's like, I don't even know where to start. And I was like, yep, been there, done that, right? And we were just joking about it earlier of, the shiny object syndrome. And so my question was like from a holistic view of like where you are in life, like what fits, like what works for you. Yeah, flipping sounds cool, but like you're gone half of the month flying an airplane. Like, can you really like flip a house, right? Airbnb sounds really cool, but man, there's a lot of operational management to that. Are you gonna do it yourself? Are you gonna hire somebody? If you hire somebody, it's a pretty big expense. What does that look like? Is your wife taking care of things when you're gone? Like, and and who are you supporting? To your point, who are you supporting? Like, what's the company that you're working with? Do you know the people in that business? Another one was like, hey, you got to look at the deal. And I was like, yeah, the deal makes sense, but you also have to look at the person. I invest in people first, right? I'm going to invest in the person I know, like, and trust, and I have a conversation with, and I know their family. I know their background, I know their values. That's who I'm going to invest in. Not and the deal kind of comes secondary to me, right? The deal has to make sense, but you got to know the person first. The second part of your conversation that you were learning about is just this idea of wisdom and passing wisdom. I just finished the book Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks, and I was telling you about it, and I know you plan on reading it too. And it's there's this there's this time frame that happens about our age, about this kind of middle of life stage where he calls it there's two different intelligences. There's a fluid intelligence, which is what you have early on in life, and that's basically just finding the facts, doing the action steps, doing the hustle, the grind, the work that it takes to build a business, to do whatever you're doing. And then, later on, as you gain wisdom, you have this what's called crystallized intelligence, and that's basically using your wisdom to pass on to others, right? And for many, as they grow in age, they try to hold on to their fluid intelligence, but your fluid intelligence actually starts to decline around your 40s. And so many of us, so many like CEOs, business owners, and investors try to hold on to that and just like work harder, hustle more, stay up later, try harder, right? But they continue to decline until they like find failure. But to go from that strength to the other strength, the crystallized intelligence, you have to make the jump from taking yourself out of this idea of like the hustle grind and the active part of your business to becoming more wise and using that wisdom, using that experience to pour into others, to help others, to build communities. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's, gathering people and helping. Maybe it's, building conferences. Whatever that is for you, taking that strength and moving it into your crystallized intelligence, that's the step that you have to take kind of like midlife to not have, a full blown crisis and a failure. And so I think that's a really interesting conversation and to think about as you're kind of growing and like going to conferences like this, surround yourself with people or creating the space so you can do that for others to help others to lean on your wisdom and pour into others. So those are just two thoughts that you were hitting on from the conference.
Yeah, man, and there's a lot of what I hear too when you say that is there's a lot of choices in that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of intentionality and even like even in naming things is very powerful and acknowledging, okay, like naming the different phases, the different stages, the crystallization, all the different things.
Right.
Naming those and leaning into, okay, well, what does that mean for me? And how do I and that's where it goes back to the identity thing. Like what is most important to me? How do I identify it? And if it's through, if it's through Jesus, then a lot of these points that you're bringing up are they're informed by something more profound, deeper, and ideally so is our identity, right? Ideally, so is the way that we conduct ourselves is informed by something that we claim to be very important, which is Jesus, the Word, and all the things that are inherent in that relationship. But also, I was thinking about it during this in what you were saying about real estate and we actively we made decisions. I don't think we didn't name them. It just we felt that it was the right thing to do
Yeah.
to almost some people would say over rehab our houses. But the numbers worked and yeah, could we have had better margins by putting in less quality stuff for sure. But it was important to us that the people that live in these houses, whether they take care of it or not, and whether they feel it or not, they had the opportunity to feel a great level of pride in these houses that we rehabbed. And it kind of struck me. I'm like, man, if you're not being that intentional in your deals, in your dealings, and like if you're running, if you're a slumlord and you're claiming faith, there's a big gap there,
Right.
right? And you have to really assess your motivations on why you would run, why would you be a slumlord And it really, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It boiled down to money. I just want to
Yeah.
maximize my returns on at whatever cost. And that was kind of the point of this guy talking about investing. I just want to maximize my costs, or I'm sorry, I just want to maximize my ROI. I just want to maximize my earnings. Cool, yeah. In the porn industry, good
In the
job.
porn
Like
industry,
that'll do it for you.
tobacco industry.
That'll
Good
do it.
job.
That'll do it for you. And just the perspective that what is truly most important and what's the time frame. That was one of the things he talked on too that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Because if you're not thinking things from an eternal perspective, and you're a believer or a claimer, you claim faith in Jesus, and you're not thinking about things from an eternal perspective, that's also not biblically sound, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not about our life here on earth. Like it's not a temporal. These are not temporal considerations. We don't serve a temporal God. Like these things need to be thought through deeply. And the more and more you do educate and you get coached and all these things, you have less and less excuse to do the things that you used to do. And the quicker that you can up ramp that, it just depends how important it is for you, right? Just depends how important it is for you. And
Totally.
so there's some, I think there's that's what a group or a meeting like this does. It challenges you in ways that you would not be challenged. That's what a coach does. That's what C12 does. That's what your coaching program does. That's what these things do. The Denver Institute for Faith and Work. As you dive into these relationships and you dive into these opportunities, man, there is a level of just challenge, right? Just challenge. And what do I do? And what I love, they kind of ended they passed out this. It was really creative. I don't know, you can't see it, but they called it a learning guide. It was a front and back. And on the learning guide, the top had purpose, and then it had all the speakers. And next to the speakers, it was kind of cool. It had formation and formation. It gave
Mm,
you blanks to just take notes on like the high points of what you learned from each speaker. And then when you flip it around, the back was there was a section meaningful or valuable. Like, what did you find most meaningful? Like, write that down. And then the
nice.
last block was, okay, taking action. Like, you have all these notes, you had all these speakers, you had some big takeaways, you had your overarching big takeaway. What are you going to do about it? And now scan this QR code and put it in here and be accountable. How are you going to be accountable to this? It was really cool, but my point is a lot of us will go to these things and take notes and it's super educational and it might even be motivational and maybe there's some emotion and I'm like, yeah, yeah, rah, rah. And you don't do anything with it. Well, what are you going to do about it? Right.
Yeah.
And I think the glue, the stickiness for that is the accountability piece. Like who's in your circle, or did you meet somebody and you're inviting them into your circle? You're trying to be in their circle from the perspective of how can I add value to you? And I would love accountability around this thing. That's the other thing about coaching, right? If
Yep.
you have a good coach, they're gonna be like, awesome, this is great. Okay, beautiful. We talked. You feel good. What are you gonna do about it? Like what
There's
actually
a
changes tomorrow?
there's a quote I read in my devotional from Alistair Begg that kind of hits this point pretty hard. Like he says, you have to bridge the gap between belief and behavior. All this stuff that we're talking about, that's what this does.
Yeah.
Bridges the gap between belief and behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can bridge that with like I think about names,
Mm,
like who's gonna help me? We talked about yesterday. I'm like, okay, Stu, this and our relationship is evolving and growing in depth. And yesterday, our conversation culminated with specific around the things we're doing. I was like, hey, I would like to be held accountable in these areas with this amount of activity to advance, our real estate stuff that you and I are doing and my stuff in C12. And here's where I think this is where my input to you, where I think it'd be good to hold you accountable. Do you agree or disagree? Are we agreeing on this? And then you give the same input to me, right?
yeah.
And I think you come to an agreement and you're like, okay, it just raises the stakes. It just raises the stakes. And when I think about these different things, these different groups, there are names attached to the accountability around it. And I was just wrapping up you've known about him. Patrick Lencioni is he's not new by any stretch.
No.
For me, diving in deeply is new. And one of the things that I just was listening to that he talked about was he said, he's like, hey, it requires leadership and the ability. He was talking about the difference between accountability and I think it was like tasking or something. And his ultimately he was just saying, are you truly a good enough leader? Oh, that's what it was. In business, if you hold somebody accountable to like tasks within the bit, like, these things that have to happen, he's like, that's easy. Any leader can do that. Are you willing to hold your team accountable to the personal stuff, like
Mm.
where they might be deviating from a character perspective or whatever? He's like, that takes real leadership and is challenging. It was impactful to me because I was like, okay, who are you? Are you really surrounded by people that are honest with you about where you suck? And it's not because you just suck. I'm just telling you suck. It's because I asked you to tell me that I suck.
Right.
And are you gonna be are you enough of a leader to tell me, hey, dude, you asked me for this, we agreed to these terms, and you're sucking. Oh, okay. Because if I truly want to be better, I want to know where I most suck, not where I'm most awesome.
Right.
And so it's just, I think when you talk about it, there's nothing that bridges the gap between, would you say the gap
Belief and
between
behavior.
belief and behavior more so than like, okay, man, I'm going to be accountable to you for this. And please hold me to it. Be careful what you ask for, though, right?
Right.
Like the
Um,
prayer, be careful when you pray, God, use me.
use me. That's right.
Use me, God. Be careful. You better be ready.
Kind of scary. Um, David, you got a lot of work to do.
I
I
do.
love you,
I do.
but you have a lot of work
I
to
love
do.
you. I got work to do. I got work to do. So do you.
I know. You're right.
I think you owe me an answer on your next cohort
It's coming.
specifics.
It's coming.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Well, hey, good. I think hopefully next year we have 1 year, not one
Yeah.
more.
Maybe
We have
maybe
one
we
year
can
to,
both
to plan.
attend.
Maybe we can both be at this
Yeah.
event together. But I am extremely happy and I think we're blessed that we both have gotten to experience it and are committed to these people that were at this conference, and it's a huge blessing. If you don't have something like this, again, this is one iteration of a thing. If you're not actively in something that is challenging you to grow and be better, like actively, and it's not just I'm not trying to belittle, church groups and all that, but like if you're trying to grow your business or you're trying to grow your impact, like I love the church and I think that we should be plugged in the church, but what else where are you investing to get a different perspective and to really challenge yourself to grow? And when I say investing, I mean money, time, relationally. What are you sacrificing to prune and to grow?
It's good, brother. I'll download all your notes from the conference soon. And if you can just hand me over all the resources so I
Yeah,
can
yeah, for sure.
get those.
It's all in my handwriting, so good luck.
Yeah. That's a
Good
little hard
luck.
to read.
Yeah.
Actually, your handwriting is way better than mine.
Way is well. That's actually just a testament to how terrible your handwriting is. That's all that is. It's not suggestive of me having good handwriting in any stretch. It's just how
Fair.
absolutely terrible your handwriting is.
Fair.
It's like a child, like a small baby child. Actually, Noah's handwriting is way better than yours. So
I'm
it's
sure it is.
yeah,
My daughter's and son's handwriting is way better than mine.
yeah, no, 100%.
High five.
All right, dude. High
High
fives,
five. Fist bumps. French fries. See ya.
butt slaps.
Butt slaps.
Peace.